I know it's been a long time in the planning, and you've been working really hard on tonight, but we're so delighted to have you. And for those of us who haven't had a chance to meet yet in person, my name is Bridget Bray. I'm the Nancy C. Allen Curator and Director of Exhibitions at Asia Society, Texas. And we're so deeply honored tonight to be focusing on the practice of the artist Cary Fagan. Tonight is Dear Was a Wolf, Chairs Are People, Artist Talk with Cary Fagan. Chairs Are People, if you haven't had a chance to become familiar with it yet, is a meditation on how to move within uncertainty. Distilled from personal experiences and explorations during his residency at Arts Itoya and Takeo, Japan, Cary Fagan's performance tonight will invite us to surrender to discomfort by building bridges into the impossible. Tonight's event will include a conversation between Cary and myself, and a sculptural meditation performance piece by Dear Was a Wolf, followed by an audience Q&A via YouTube Live and Facebook. A little bit more about Cary. He was born in Arizona and now lives in Houston, and is an artist whose work transcends the boundaries of any one artistic form. Starting out as a photographer and filmmaker, Cary was drawn to analog film at a moment when the rise of digital technology seemed unstoppable. There is a timelessness in Cary's work that goes beyond its analog format. At its core, he hopes that people will, quote, gain insight to what they're going through and how they relate when they look at it. Cary's explorations into notions of time, memory, and how we form connections with one another have segued into other artistic mediums. A curiosity about the anthropomorphic characteristics of chairs has led him to what he calls chair sculpting. These experimental sculptures resulted in a life-changing residency at Arts Itoya in Takeo, Japan, which we'll talk about in more detail this evening. In June 2020, Chairs Are People was registered with a trademark. As Cary puts it, quote, an empty chair is a space for possibility. Programs like this, of course, are not possible without the generous support of many, many people. And tonight's program was, of course, organized by Asia Society, Texas, with cooperation of Cary. Exhibitions and related programs here at the center are presented by Nancy C. Allen and Leslie and Brad Bucher. Major support comes from Chen Hee-jun and Eddie Allen and Mary Lawrence Porter, as well as the Brown Foundation, the Hearst Foundation, Houston Endowment, and the City of Houston through the Houston Arts Alliance. Generous funding is also provided by the Anchorage Foundation of Texas, the Clayton Fund, Texas Commission on the Arts, National Endowment for the Arts, the Wortham Foundation, Olive Jenny, and Ann Wales. United Airlines is our official airline partner. Funding is also provided through contributions from the exhibition's patron circle, a dedicated group of individuals and organizations committed to bringing exceptional visual art to Asia Society, Texas. And nothing could fit that bill more exactly than this evening, and we're so delighted to have you here with us. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
So jumping into some questions, I think one of the things you and I talked about before was this idea of being lost and being found in translation. And you and I both share an experience of going and living and working in Asia and sort of losing and finding ourselves in that translation. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to be in Japan?
Wow, that is a very loaded question. Where do I even begin? I made the decision to go to Japan because I was at a point of exhaust with familiarity with the home that I was living in here in Houston. And I was also realizing that I was burning out from my main passion, photography. I wanted something different. And making this decision was my opportunity to get lost and to find myself again. I think as an artist, for all of us, we get caught up in the creation, but we often almost forget who we are in the process. And we also often forget to step back from the process. So this was my opportunity to step back and find myself and recognize my capabilities and recognize my potential. And to answer your question, what it was like in Japan, well, for anyone who hasn't been to Japan, I emphasize that Japan allows you to think loudly in silence. Japan offers a space of security and also privacy in a sense. I feel that Japan also has, well, I'm 30, and I think as we're older, we want to find that perfect place to live in when we get older, and Japan is the first place that helped me realize this is where I want to live one day. But for anyone that hasn't been there, Japan really emphasizes the simple things, and I think that's what a lot of us here are missing at the moment.
But I think too, in a conversation you and I had, this idea of having kind of woken up in Japan, you really kind of see something different about yourself, about your practice. The intriguing thing for me about watching you work with the chairs is the tension between the perfect balance and a completely unpredictable component. One of the things that I associate with Japan is a sense of, when you're out from the city, a sense of tranquility that you can find. Did you have that experience of finding kind of surprising pockets of tranquility, and how does that kind of come into the chair practice, this idea of the tension between the tranquil and the creative and productive?
So to give you a little backstory on the residency, I applied to this residency with no intention of stacking chairs. I had no intention either of showing my photographs, but I knew I wanted to do something different. On the first day when I arrived to the studio, there were 10 chairs, and the first thought that came to my mind was showcasing these sets of chairs in the way that I would see them. And after that, after I figured that out, I had a whole month to really live in Japan. So the next day, to experience the tranquility, it started in my routine, and the routine was simply waking up, going for a hike, going for a bike ride. In Japan, there's a lot of hiking trails, so you can never get tired of where you are. A week is not long enough, 2 weeks is not long enough. So, again, the simple things allowed me to experience tranquility in the most simplest form, even through interaction. Interacting with the locals of Takeo, they embraced me. They treated me like I lived there forever. And just, when you go to Japan and you also are trying to study the language, they recognize that, and they really do admire that and respect that, and they treat you so well. And again, that's just the interaction is so nourishing. It's so, we're all used to that. I just feel like outside of America, it just happens a lot more. Or maybe the simple things are more emphasized. I don't know, but it's just so. Well, let me give you a story. So they have a really big onsen culture in Japan, and I just finished a 3-hour onsen session, and went out to the lobby to cool down.
Just maybe for the audience that doesn't know onsen, maybe just give them a short.
So an onsen is it's a public bath in Japan. They're really big on public bathing, and they have different types of onsens. They have kind of the private onsens, the natural onsens, the modern onsens, and so these are just. I feel like when people visit the onsen, it's like a break in the day for them to just simply cool down and relax. The water is very healthy for your skin, and I had just finished a session, and usually in the lounge they have vending machines. A family came out, a little girl came out, she got ice cream, and she came over to me, and actually asked me to take a bite of the ice cream. And the family, well, I looked at her in awe and I was confused because, normally this isn't normal. The family came by and encouraged that I take a bite, and I did. And so that interaction, they said goodnight to me, they all smiled, but that interaction alone was enough for me to be like, I'm sold. I wanna be here.
Yeah, I tried to imagine a comparable experience here of a stranger coming up to me and offering me a bite of their ice cream. It just doesn't land in quite the same way here, right? Yeah. I would think, though, that a 2-hour session at an onsen would perfectly prepare your mind for a maximum state of relaxment or energy. Yeah. This idea of deer was a wolf, can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so Deer was a Wolf. This title is a correlation to my kind of transformation in Japan, Nara Deer Park, to be more specific. Growing up, doing my career, I always consider my energy very wolf-like, very wolf-spirited, very majestic, very objective, but also very mysterious and also kind of lacking. And that correlates with me being lost, making the decision to go to Japan. When I went to Japan, wolves, they're usually in the shadows. So when I went to Japan, I felt like I was going into nature, Deer Park. In Deer Park, you're able to feed the deers and kind of be again in nature and enjoy that. But they don't trust you when you have food. You have to kind of gain that trust. They're very aware of movement. And there was a moment when I was there, it felt just like a movie where I had a really subtle exchange. I had a slow exchange with the deer. I gave the deer food, and that experience and that exchange, I say deer was a wolf because I stepped out of the light into this. I have to show you the image, but it was kind of like a circular piece of land. The deer was here, I was here, and we both met in the middle, fed it, and that exchange was kind of nature giving me the power of showcasing vulnerability and using that in my creative process. And like in this statement, mistakes will happen. Being okay with having mistakes and showing that and not having things be so perfect. And that's really what I correlate the title to. And so I always consider myself now to have both energies. I was a wolf, but now I'm reborn a deer, and so it's like an energy.
I think that if they aren't, hopefully they'll jump on because there's just so much there. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you decide, because the photography is there, the writing is on the website, the chair work, all of it. How do you decide what a particular project needs, or is it really just sort of an idea and then it shapes itself for you?
Usually, my creative process is very spontaneous. Over time, with chair stacking, it's actually giving me the ability to make decisions a lot better. How do I change from mediums to medium? Well, I've learned that I don't always have to do everything at once. I used to have that mindset, get everything done before the day ends. But I say this over and over, time doesn't exist. If you all noticed on the flyer, there was no end time. And in reality, I control that time. You know, it ends when I feel that way. And that comes to my decision if I feel that it's over. I've learned to maintain balance in all of my processes because I understand that a lot of things do not have to have an immediate ending. And if you're okay and you understand that, well, eventually it will, just whenever that happens.
Do you think that that's an understanding that's become deeper through your chair work, or is that just something that you think you're coming to through all of the different practices?
I think this is something, as I'm getting older, I'm understanding and learning, becoming more wiser, thinking a lot more slowly than I used to, really appreciating simplicity. I think up to this point, it's been a long journey, and part of the journey was me forgetting those things. Now I'm here, I'm 30. I feel like I'm just getting started. I have direction. I'm able to tell you that and feel okay with that. I have understanding. I have acceptance. I would have thought I would have been nervous today, but I'm actually very calm because I know the outcome.
One of the things that you and I have in common also is a love of studying language. And I wonder, from your study of Japanese, has there been any sort of takeaway for you from that study or that discipline, any kind of realization that you can share with the audience?
I realize I'm able to learn another language. Also, when you learn different languages, you can feel your brain move. You can feel that part of your brain working, and that is something that I appreciate. And, if I can learn Japanese, well, I can learn so many other things. It's just, are you passionate about learning? Do you want to use this in your future? And this is something ideally I would use in my future because I see myself in Japan. I want to be able to communicate with the locals and be a part of it.
Yeah, I foresee many, many more trips to Japan and a lot more time there for you.
Hopefully. I mean, it's closed now because of the pandemic, and I mean, I was gonna do a residency in May for a whole month, but that's when everything just got crazy. So one day.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hopefully soon.
Well, I think the audience, of course, will send questions to us throughout, and then you and I can come back together and talk through some of the questions from the audience. But I don't want to delay any further the creative process that people are really excited to see. So I'm going to go ahead and peel off and leave.
Cool. I'll walk off.
Thank you so much. How do you feel?
I feel back on earth. I almost cried when I put the last chair on.
Yeah, it's such an emotional journey. Just looking forward to a time when more people can be with you in person to experience it, because I've seen you do this work now several times, and you just really can't describe it unless you see it.
Yeah, this one was hard. I mean, you guys saw it was about to fall like 2 or 3 times, but you know, there's just that trust inside of me where I'm able to know that it's gonna be okay. And I mean, here it is. It's actually taller than what I had last time, or maybe equivalent.
Yeah, I think it just keeps growing. There were a zillion questions, so I'll just give you a few.
Okay, cool.
May is asking, how does it feel when a chair falls? Does it distract you? Do you just consider it part of the process?
So you all noticed me flinching today, but today I was a little bit more focused. This is kind of a big moment, introducing this, idea to the world. I was a little nervous, I would admit. When a chair is about to fall, in this moment, I did get a little tense, but something in me allowed me to be okay with that. Yeah, you heard me kind of grunt and hope for the best, but you also have to keep moving forward no matter what. If this were all to fall now or even during my process, I would just start over, and it was meant to be that way.
You and I have talked a lot about music and musical influences, but a question from Caitlin was, how conscious are you while you're working of the sound? Are you trying to control it? Is it just a natural byproduct? When you're in person with the experience, I can hear you tapping, sort of testing. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about the soundscape of this?
So right now it's extremely quiet. This is kind of the same silence you would get in Japan. Very meditative, very, that's another thing. There was a spotlight on the stage, so you feel like you're in the moment and you're able to recognize that. What was the question? Sorry, I was about
this idea of the sound of it. Are you conscious of that, or it's just a natural byproduct?
I'm very aware in this process. I'm very well aware. My friend Maltese came and adjusted the camera, and as I was drinking water, I felt my mind just pointing to the chairs, like, this could fall if something were to go wrong. My mind was talking to me while I was drinking water. I prefer no music. Like I can't do this with music unless it's in more of a, I haven't actually done this process with music, and I find that could be possibly distracting.
And then also part of the soundscape is like Maltese, Isaiah moving around, shooting images. I think what really strikes me is your just absolute utter concentration. It's so obvious how focused you are. And that is part of the whole idea of the sort of fluidity of time, because you're just in this and time doesn't really apply to you while you're working.
Right. I mean, I asked you what time it was, and I was surprised because I actually thought this was shorter than the last time, but this is actually longer. So I did lose trace of time.
Right. Another question from Silas is, how does your work as a visual artist inform your work in performance, if at all?
Well, that's developing. Ideally, I would have been more performative tonight. The objective was to finish and show you all that it is possible. As this grows, I plan to make it more performative, adding sound, adding a uniform costume aspect to it. But I want to be more comfortable with my process before I venture off into adding on to it.
And I think for that, we're all very grateful that you let us kind of go on the journey with you as it unfolds and develops and deepens. In closing, what, if any, advice do you have for artists and also just people trying to keep their heads up right now? What's helping you stay focused? What's helping you keep going with everything that's going on in the world right now?
Well, I know with all the uncertainty that we're living in right at the moment, I feel that if you are creating something during these times, you're doing the impossible already. I also think it's important to be creating during these times because, you know, everything we look at is filled with chaos and conflict, but our energy can be used in our creative process, and our voices can be heard. And that's one thing during COVID and quarantine is I found my voice during the time that I have. And it's helping me speak about my creative process, speak about my expressions, my feelings during these moments and experiences. And I'm grasping more onto my direction. I would say, because I do feel that this is going to continue, this quarantine kind of era, I would say to move forward, really look into obtaining balance within yourself. I go for a walk when I'm tired of everything. That's the most simplest activity that I do that also nourishes my body. I'm able to come back and finish what I want to finish. And when you are able to sort of manipulate time, I think, again, anything is possible. Fear is just an illusion. It also helps you learn quicker. I was just writing today, fear is the rain cloud. Would you run away from the rain cloud or would you face it? Ideally, if you ran away from it, it would eventually catch up to you. But if you face it, it goes past you, and that's it. So that's where I want to leave it off.
Well, again, I cannot thank you enough for letting us be on this part of the journey with you this evening. Mm-hmm. It's such a great honor for us, and on behalf of all of the colleagues here at Asia Society, including tonight, Alana, Liz, and Chris, thank you for allowing us to share in this session. And, I hope you can just really use Houston as a launching off for all of the wonderful things that we think that we'll look forward to coming from you in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I'm seriously honored to be doing this on stage. And thank you for everyone tuning in if you guys are still here. I do appreciate your time tonight. And, again, this wouldn't be possible without you and the Asia Society. So thank you.
And I hope I encourage everyone in the audience to really do a deep dive on your website. Pay attention to what you're working on through Instagram, and you won't be disappointed, I promise. Thank you again, Cary.
Thank you.